Well, hello, Epiphany. Nice to see you. Happy Thursday. I'm glad you came back. We're reading the Gospel of John. Let's get right into it. Chapter 6, verse 48. Yesterday, just as a brief reflection, we talked about how we're taught by God and how God's teaching is not about what we learn, but about how we're made toward what we learn. So we're each given an aptitude, and that aptitude becomes well manifest when we live our life as Jesus would if he had the skills that we had in the context of our life, in the world in which we're set. Right? So to be taught by God means to be made by God, oriented for a particular task in the world. Let's read on here. Jesus says, verse 49, "Your ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread that comes down from heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. And the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh." It's very simple, really. This whole idea of eating the flesh of Jesus can be such a confusing, barbaric, cannibalistic, totally disorienting idea. But I think he gave it to us in a much more simple way. I have a body. I was made with the capacity to be like Jesus, and so do you. And so the whole point of being the flesh of Jesus is to live your life like Jesus. And the bread is a symbol of presence. So when we eat it, we're acknowledging our capacity to be divine, to be eternal, to be remarkably powerful and capable. And so that's what he's getting at. He is the bread, right? He's the presence, and living our life like he lives his life in our context is the thing that he is driving us toward. And it gets so confused because when you look at the bread, the manna that Moses found for the Israelites when they were in the desert, that helped this thing live, their body live. And if you keep reading that story in Exodus, they ate the manna, and by the time they got to the Jordan River to cross over to the Promised Land, every single person that came out of Egypt and ate that manna died. And it was a new generation that went into the Holy Land. Some of them may have eaten the manna, but none of them that came out of Egypt and ate the manna that Moses gave them to live continued to live. Jesus is talking about a different kind of life that we can orient ourselves towards. Now, you and I both know that people die, right? The body does sort of wither up and go away, and we all expect that to happen. None of us wish it to happen upon anybody else, but we all understand that it'll happen for us. But what we know as Christians, what we know is that this existence is bigger, right? Because we have this eternal relationship with Jesus. Let's read on in verse 52. "The Jews then disputed among themselves, saying, 'How can this man give us his flesh to eat?' So Jesus says to them, 'Very truly I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you.'" Right? So the blood, of course, I always talk about this, is the charism, the vitality of Jesus. The bread is the presence in the moment of Jesus. So we both have his actual presence and his charism. "And without that, you don't have any life within you. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day. For my flesh is true food, and my blood is true drink. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, I live because of the Father. So, whoever eats me will live because of me." Right? So it's this passing on the heritage of Jesus' divinity in the life of the church that is composed of people like you and me. This is the bread that came down from heaven, not like that which your ancestors ate and died, the manna. But the one who eats this bread will live forever. He said these things while he was teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. And these were very hard things because Jesus was moving their right-sensed orientation from the tribe, from the hierarchy of the Jewish community, from the reality of bread feeding one's body, to a spiritual plane. You're invited to move to a spiritual plane. I'd like you to wonder what that looks like. I'd like you to wonder what you look like eternally. Because you know it's not this thing, right? This thing's going away. So who are you in your eternal life? It's a big question, but I think it's also a clear question. Look at the things that are conflicted within you. Look at your greatest gifts. Look at what God calls you to do when you're in relationship with people. And wonder about how that's your eternal destiny. You're in my prayers. I love you very much. I'm sorry when we can't be together, but I'm really happy that we can connect this way. Peace upon your soul.